All right, we're recording. My name is James. I'm the owner of Paydirt This is the Saturday night stream. We're going to be going over week 2 of the NFL season, looking at projections, looking at models, looking at contest simulations, looking at Stack Finder, Pivot Finder, everything that's over on the site at Paydirt. Currently running some updates to the NFL models, so just kind of waiting for those to populate. In the meantime, I'll answer some questions and just kind of chat a little bit, but also show kind of what is happening for the slate overall. I'm not sure if you guys can see that. We will zoom in a little bit here so that it's a little bit easier to see. So overall, for the team's stack range of outcomes, I don't think that these will change much overall. Like, Kelley is in, Mark Andrews is in, so like these guys aren't going to change too much, I don't think. The big thing that'll change is going to be when I update ownership tomorrow. Those will change a lot of the leverage numbers, but overall, like, I think when we're looking at stacks, like, the stacks make a lot of sense. Buffalo is up top, median of 55, and then we have Justin Herbert and a Chargers stack. We have some Kansas City up here. We have some Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati will actually come in relatively lowly owned here, mostly just because they were such a letdown last week that it's probably going to make a lot of sense for them to come in under what people expect them to come in. As we were looking at the stacks that are the worst, yeah, of course, the Jets there, Atlanta, Jets again, Indianapolis. If we sort things by LevX, just based on right now, the best stacks looking like the Rams, Washington, Seattle, Houston, Denver. Those are the highest LevX. None of them necessarily project super well. Seattle looks pretty good at 45 and really, really low ownership. That game overall, like, I think Detroit, Seattle. I'm going to actually also pull up the research stuff. So yeah, that game overall, like, Detroit has a team total of 26 and Seattle has a team total of 21.5. I think that game actually doesn't have that bad of a game environment, all things considered. Like, there are some other games that obviously have better ones, like Kansas City, Jacksonville looks really, really good. I guess I should zoom in a little bit. Kansas City and Jacksonville looks really, really good here. Some other games, I don't really see any other games that have both teams in this top range. Tennessee and the Chargers, that one is interesting. Chargers at 24, and Joshua Kelley is going to be Giga Chalk, so stacking the Chargers when they have a team total that high. Especially because if we sort by rushing touchdowns, like, the Chargers are not towards the top. Chargers are towards the bottom. They're only implied for 0.57 rushing touchdowns and 1.81 passing touchdowns. So, like, if you're going to play Josh Kelley, what you have to hope is that he gets the receiving touchdowns, right? Because the Chargers are just not a team that profiles to run very much in the red zone without Austin Eckler. So, considering that, I think that that's one piece of reasoning for why you should probably fade Joshua Kelley. As we're looking at the highest rushing touchdowns, Philadelphia profiled as the best, and of course they met that. Detroit, second highest. David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. I've heard some people saying that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be, this is his breakout week, I guess. He's just not getting the usage, man. Like, if you go and look at, I'm already on this, so if you go and look at his usage, go to specific teams here, and this is usually using data, similar data to what is happening over at Fantasy Life. And for those of you who don't know, I work with Fantasy Life and do a lot of their data stuff. So, I think that their data stuff is really, really good. You should go check them out. It's free. Anyway, so when we look at the utilization for their running backs, like, Jahmyr Gibbs only had 27% of the snaps in week 1. And that just doesn't really speak to a great role for him. Granted, the expected PPR points was right there with David Montgomery, because he was getting some targets. His targets per route run was really good. He did end up getting some red zone work as well, but, like, this role split, it's not like David Montgomery is a bad back, you know? And I think that people are just, like, wanting to will the Jahmyr Gibbs thing into existence, and I just don't know if that's going to happen. So We'll see. We'll see. I understand why people like him, but the role just wasn't there week one, and I kind of want to wait for the role to be there, especially when running backs, that there are enough running backs this week, and in general that I think project okay, that I just don't feel I really need to take a shot on Gibbs. Answering some questions. So let's see. Holly MVP, same game that won Hoops the Millie last year. Yes, indeed, that Detroit-Seattle game. I don't really expect it to be that much of fireworks. Seattle ran like God last year, and I think that Detroit is still basically the same team, but you would have hoped that they would have picked up better pass catchers, and I just think that Amon-Ra St. Brown, is like the best option that they have by a long shot. And after that, it gets kind of thin, I think. Laporta is pretty good, too. But, yeah, I like that game. I think that stacking that game makes a lot of sense. Lions Seahawks is crazy. Yep, absolutely. Can we go over the betting model if I have time? Yeah, absolutely. I'll go over the betting model here in a sec. Campbell quoted saying he wanted to limit in the first game. I know. But Campbell said that he was going to get more work as the year progressed. And so, yeah, again, if we look at just Detroit in general, all positions. So, even if we assume that he now ends up with, a 35% of the snaps and, maybe 30% of the rushing attempts, it's still not a role that I'm really buying, you know? That utilization would just not be that good. If we consider... So let's just look overall at everybody last week in just week one in terms of running back utilization. If we are just looking at week one here, David Montgomery's utilization was terrific. It was sixth best of the entire week. He's sitting there with guys like Ramondre Stevenson, Jamal Williams, who I know had a bad game, Rachaad White, who I know had a bad game, but these guys still had really, really good roles. The only thing is that David Montgomery, he's not getting the targets, right? So that is the part that is going to Jahmyr Gibbs. I should zoom in again. That is the part that's going to Jahmyr Gibbs. So that's kind of the biggest knock on David Montgomery here, is that he's just not getting the targets. And we can expect him to get a couple targets here and there, probably not very many. But overall, if we want to say, okay, he's going to have 30% of the snaps or something, or 35% of the snaps, and maybe 30% of the rushing work, that puts him at the Chuba Hubbard range, which is okay, but still his expected fantasy points is probably going to be somewhere in the 10 to 11 fantasy points range, and it's just not that attractive from a point per dollar standpoint, and especially because I think that he's probably going to end up relatively highly owned too. Let's just go take a look at running backs really quick and kind of see where he's at. I don't think that I have him projected super badly, but I just don't think that in terms of the price, I just don't think that it's going to be there. Yeah, I'm projected for 10, and he's 6,300. He's too expensive, I think. If he had David Montgomery's role, I would say that he was probably worth a shot. But at 6,300, man, let's just compare him with other guys in that range. Jahmyr Gibbs at 6,300. Would you rather play him, or would you rather play Joe Mixon, who had a killer role last week? Would you rather play James Conner, who had a killer role? James Cook, who's basically the same play in a better game environment? At 6,300, I just don't know how you justify Jahmyr Gibbs unless you think there's going to be a massive shift in the way that he's used, and I just don't see that for week two. What do I think his price would be if not a limited role? If I thought that he had the lead role, he'd probably be 7,500. If he was the guy, and Dave Montgomery was instead getting 30% of the snaps, then yeah, he probably should be priced somewhere around Josh Jacobs or Tony Pollard. But I don't expect that. I expect, at best, a 60-40 split in Dave Montgomery's favor. And, the game environment is fine, but I just don't expect him to be, a 75-25 lead against Dave Montgomery until at least later on in the season. If he proves to be the man, that's awesome. But but I just don't think he's going to be there week 2. And yeah, I agree with you that that he was a good receiver in Chicago. So I don't think that last week is going to continue, really. So betting model really quick. We can go talk about the betting model. We'll do that because I didn't go over that last week, and I probably should have. So, and I'm very good at streaming. So this is updated this morning. I did actually do an update. It should be done running now. Yeah, there we go. Okay. And then this updates after you change it. So when you're looking at the betting model, the best thing to do, like if you just want to see like winners, I guess, is just sort by win percentage. You can compare it against what the Vegas win percentage is based on the last time that I updated Vegas. And you can find outliers. Like if you say the highest win percentage difference, then you can see what teams we expect, or the Paydirt model expects to do better in Vegas. So Seattle has a 49% win percentage based on my model, and Vegas only has them at 34%. So they're probably a good bet. In terms of the other way around, obviously it's Detroit, 15%, but Cincinnati, Vegas has them at 60%. And the model only has them at 46%. So that's a pretty easy thing to do. If you wanted to just look at American odds, so that you could see kind of like if this is an easier way for you to read it, then that works as well. I prefer to just look at the percentages though. It's just easiest for me to read. If you want to see the largest differences in the spread, then you can say, what is the spread diff? And you can sort this. Negative means that... So the Paydirt spread has Baltimore as a 2-point favorite. Vegas has them as a 3-point underdog. So there you go. That's how you use that. If we go over into the QB projections and everything, you can see what the projections actually are for all of the base stats. If you go into player prop simulations, this is probably the only other thing that like really needs to be shown. But you can choose any player and you can set in what you want to see for their prop, right? So let's just take a look at Josh Allen because he was somebody who I looked at earlier. Say that the prop offered is 263.5, and it's offered at 115. And you want to see if he should hit the over. You can do that. You can hit simulate prop, and then it takes a second. You can see that it's running by this little running guy up here. And then it'll tell you. So the mean outcome is 263.63. The implied odds 53.27. It beats the prop 49.5% of the time. So it is a no bet. And you can see actually where on the distribution that landed. So say that the prop was actually 285.5. If you input that and then simulate out the prop, and then wait for a second, you can see that the prop here is this green line. Mean outcome 283.82. Implied odds 53.27. It beats the prop 36.82% of the time. Obviously a no bet. But if you say the under and then simulate that, and then again, wait a second, then when it shows up, you can see the props here. Mean outcome 262.63, and again, this is subject to random variation, so it's always going to be very close, but not exact any of the times. Implied odds 53.27. It beats the under 63% of the time. So I have it to be where you need to have a 10% edge to make a bet, so it says no bet. But if you wanted to bet this, that's totally fine. You can go ahead and do your thing. So that's how you use the betting model. The other thing is with the stat-specific simulations, but this one is very easy. You just select the prop category and then simulate the prop category, and then it'll tell you what to bet. It's very easy to do. So that's how you use the betting model. Super easy. So let's go ahead and look at the contest simulations. This has gotten a lot of improvements. So one thing here, really quick. The contest sims have had a lot of issues to start the season, right? And like I acknowledge those issues, and I think that it's important for people to understand that I know that they were happening, and I was doing my best to fix them, right? Don't yell at me. So, I have been working really, really hard to make sure that they're working correctly. This week, I made a lot of adjustments and a lot of changes. And one of the main things that you're going to see is, one, it's faster. Two, there's a little bit more information on the screen about what is going on. And three, the big one, is the scaling has been much improved. And not only has the scaling been much improved, I actually created a second model and put it on the site so that now there are two different models of the same model, two different pages of the same model. So that if one is slow and dealing with a lot of usage, you can actually use the other one, and it is the exact same model. So here is the contest simulation screen. Obviously, if you just want to use this one, you can go in and you can say, let's simulate an average small field, right? We're just going to do the main slate. This is fully updated, so we'll just hit simulate contest, and then it's going to say the contest simulation starting, and then it's going to start creating the seed frame, which if you have not seen my breakdown on how this kind of works and how I went about creating this model, there's videos for that on my YouTube, which you could always go and find and ask me about. Then it'll go into simulating contest frames, which is basically simulating the contest based on the random variations that it created. And then we have the actual results here, right? So it's going to tell you things about like where the edge lies and what the exposures were of players, what their projected own is, yada, yada, yada. If this is running slowly, what you can do is say, I want to go use the other one, and go click here, and it will take you to the secondary model, which is the exact same model and just like helps lower the burden on the usage of both models. So this is going to be something that I hope makes it so that everybody can experience the contest sims tomorrow. I will be monitoring usage and making sure that things are running as smoothly as possible, but hopefully this helps a lot. And if it doesn't, then fuck me, I guess. That's the best that I can do. You said that you're having trouble running sims for everyone's fave site, FanDuel. You tried both. Okay. So in the Discord, I assume that you're in the Discord, go into the tech channel and post a screenshot of the error that you are getting and whatever like settings you're trying to use. And then I'll take a look at that and I'll try to fix that tonight, all right? How far am I comfortable in dropping projections to go down from the top stacks in the model? I'll just probably play the top stacks now. I don't really think that hard about those things anymore, to be honest with you. And like what it comes down to is like I think that you have to care about those things when you MME. But if you're just building like 5 stacks or whatever, or if you're hand building like 3 to 5 stacks, it's going to be really, really hard for you to get so far away from the optimal lineup that you have to worry about it. Like, for instance, let's go take a look at the stacks here, right? So, just from median standpoints here, right? Actually, I guess I can go use the optimizer. This is even easier, right? We're just going to reset data. Blah, 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 blah. Setting export IDs, yada, yada. Okay, cool. So then I'm just going for small field optimal, and we'll just run the pivot optimal. So if I run 20 of these lineups, the top one is projected for 132.36. So 132 down to 130, right? If I said instead of using the pivot optimal that I just wanted to instead do a charger stack, for instance, and I want to stack 2 people, and then I run that, the projection is 127. And it's like, okay, so that's 5 points below what the optimal is, but like the charger stack for sure has enough upside to where I'm okay with eating 5 points in projection or whatever, right? Like, I don't really care about that. Because, 1, the ownership is going to be less, and 2, like, if I know... So, let's just take a look at this, right? If I know that I'm looking at this, and I know that a charger stack is projected for 50 here, and 44 here, right? So the big thing is getting Mike Williams. If I know that this stack is up here and projected for 50, and that their ownership is comparable and less than some other stacks, like, I'm probably fine just stacking that team. I'm probably fine just saying, Kershaw, I need you to chill. So much yelling. I know that Buffalo is a fine stack. This kind of Charger stack with Herbert, Allen, and Williams is fine. I know that Cincinnati stacks, specifically with Burrow, Chase, and Higgins, are fine. I know that Kansas City stacks are fine. I know that there's a Seattle stack that's probably fine. Like, these stacks are fine. The thing is that, like, as long as you're not stacking these shit can teams that, like, project as red and have medians in the 20s or whatever, you're probably fine, man. Neil, I think you specifically worry way too much about, like, the little stuff, and you should just build a good lineup, you know? Like, it's not, you don't have to think that hard about it. So long as you just take a look at this and say, I'm going to build a Buffalo stack, you're probably fine. You can probably just build a Buffalo stack. Speaking of that, though, let's go ahead and go take a look at the Stack Finder. So this is one of the other things that I always do is go look at the Stack Finder. So I specifically want to look at QB2 stacks here, and I'm just going to run the whole slate really quick. So I do end up getting a Buffalo stack here. I get a Buffalo stack with Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, and Josh Allen, which is nice. Let's see. When we're looking at the optimals here, so I don't get the one with Kincaid. Do I get Kansas City? Yeah, I get some Kansas City. So there are variations of all of these different stacks that you can use, right? Like, there's a Charger stack, there's a Cincinnati stack, there's a Buffalo stack, there's a Kansas City stack, Seattle. Like, all of those top stacks have stacks that you can use. You can use any one of these stacks. Just looking at it, like, why would I not try to use, like, a Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and Tyler Boyd stack? Like that stack is only 18.6. The ownership is really low at 24. It projects for 46 fantasy points. Like, that's pretty good. There's a lot of different ways to go about it. What if I just said that I wanted to look at QB plus 1? Like, how many stacks do I have there? Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs. We have a Buffalo. We have a Kansas City. So we don't actually have a Chargers stack here, at least towards the top. We also don't have... What was the other one that was popular here? Yeah, we don't have a Cincinnati stack here. So Cincinnati stacks fall off. But if you just wanted to use Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers, if you just wanted to use Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce as, like, a single stack here, like, that's fine. Any of these stacks you're going to be able to use, and then just surround them with good players. May I ask how I make short lists so I can focus on the best plays? You need to stop focusing on short list. First off, you just look at the best plays in the, like, just sort by the model. Like, just go into the model and just, like, go to here and say who's the highest projected, who has the highest 20+ percentage, who has the highest 4x percentage, and then just go on your way. Like, those are kind of the players that you need to care about. But there's so much more than that. Like, if you just focus on those things, like, that's fine, and you'll be able to build, like, some good lineups. But, like, also you need to understand and pay attention to who the highest owned players on the slate are and make decisions around them. So, like, as far as ownership goes, the player that projects for the most ownership is going to be Joshua Kelley. You need to make a decision with him because he's projected to be 33% owned. You need to make a decision with Calvin Ridley. You need to make a decision with Devontae Adams. Once you've made, like, 3 to 5 decisions on the highest owned players, then you can just build whatever the fuck you want. As long, like, if you fade Joshua Kelley, play Calvin Ridley and Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams, and you're fine. If you fade Devontae Adams, then you can probably get away with Calvin Ridley and Joshua Kelley. Like, it just comes down to making the decisions that matter most on the slate and picking a side and making sure that you don't eat too much chalk. And that'll be fine. And that's even considering a large field contest, right? In small field contests, you don't even really have to work that hard. You just have to say, what's the best combination of these players that I can make that's not over-owned? And the way that you do that is by using things like the Stack Finder. So if you're building for small field stuff, you can literally start with any of these stacks. There's nothing wrong with this because these are all high enough projected based on their ownership. So like you can play any of these stacks and it's totally fine. You just start with this and then you say, okay, so who are the running backs that I want to use? You come here and you sort by median probably, and then you sort by 4x. Say, okay, Rachaad White looks pretty good. James Cook looks pretty good. Do I want to make a decision on Joshua Kelley? Well, I could play him, but then I probably have to get off some ownership otherwise. Oh, wait, Rachaad White is only projected to be 6% owned. I can play them together, and I get plenty of leverage. It's just thinking through these things, man. And I think that the pivot article that Tribe does on Friday is really good and talks through those things. Kershaw, please. Please. Daddy's just trying to get us through his stream. And then, just build like a good lineup. So the main thing that you don't want to do is go into the optimizer, choose cash, and optimize, right? Like that's the one thing that you really don't want to do. So here are the 10 highest owned lineups. Or I can get kicked with an error. Here's the top 10 highest owned lineups based on right now. Allen, Kelley, Dillon, Devontae Adams, Calvin Ridley, Keenan Allen, Luke Musgrave, Jaden Reed, and the Cardinals defense, right? So here is the top 10 highest owned lineups. The thing that you don't want to do is just use this. But say that you use this, right? And then you go into the pivot finder and say, okay, Joshua Kelley is the highest owned player. So I'm going to go into the pivot finder. I'm going to say Joshua Kelley. Plus or minus 300 within a median of 3. And then we're going to simulate appropriate pivots. Sort by LevX. Well, hold on, let's do just running backs here. So if we're looking at just running backs, right? Like Joshua Kelley is fine, but there's Samaje Perine. Like if you sort by LevX here, Samaje Perine looks like just as good of a play as Joshua Kelley, but at 1% ownership. Brian Robinson Jr. at 5% ownership. Like you can take this lineup for very small field stuff, like less than 500 people or less than 1,000 people, and just swap Joshua Kelley for Brian Robinson, and like you'll be fine. Kershaw, come on. I should have let Kershaw out of my room before I did this, but it is what it is. So yeah, you can just swap Joshua Kelley for Brian Robinson, and like this lineup is fine. If you wanted to swap both him and A.J. Dillon, you could do that too. If you thought that Calvin Ridley was too high owned, then you can go into the pivot finder and you can say Calvin Ridley as well. So for this, we're just going to look at wide receivers and running backs because in the optimizer, yeah, Jaden Reed, we have a wide receiver there, so we can actually swap out Calvin Ridley for a running back here. Oh, hey, look, a person trying to offer me something for streaming, but I fucking suck at streaming. I understand that you're a bot, but, I don't want to deal with that. So if you do running backs and wide receivers, like you can see that Tony Pollard right here at 7,500, you can do a 2v2 swap off of this top lineup with Brian Kelley instead of Brian Robinson instead of Joshua Kelley, and you can do Tony Pollard instead of Calvin Ridley and move Jaden Reed into the wide receiver too. And, there you go. That's a great single entry lineup here. Just playing all the chalk and then swapping two spots. So, pretty easy. Come here, Kershaw. Let's see. Do I look for a secondary stack? Kind of. Not really. Like, if I'm building out and say that I am looking for small field GPPs and I'm just going to run... So I know that I have a lot of interest in a Cincinnati stack, right? No. Come here, bud. Come on. Stop being an asshole. So what I'll do usually is I'll run the optimizer and I'll kind of see what the best stacks are for what I'm trying to build. And this one looks okay. It's got Irv Smith Jr. I kind of want to try to find one. I'm going to lock in Boyd. Or actually, I'm going to lock in Higgins. And just optimize on that. And then I'll kind of like, if I am looking for a secondary stack, like the big thing that I'm doing really is kind of looking and seeing, okay, is there really a secondary stack that I can make? And based on like running these things, yeah, I don't know. It doesn't look that attractive overall. And like it's actually looking kind of hard for me to get Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Here's a Jamar Chase and T. Higgins one. Yeah, like if I wanted to try to do a secondary correlation against Adam Trotman, I'd be fine with that. Or against Tutu Atwell, I'd be fine with that. But only if it works. Like, I'm not going to force it. I'd rather just play good players. And I kind of talk about that a lot. I've talked about that a lot in the Discord. I think that bringbacks and secondary correlations are something that contest sims have shown are not that valuable. It's still okay to do, like, if you have a correlation that is easily manageable, but I'm not going to force it. So, anyway, I'm going to close off this stream because I'm actually, you know what? I'm not going to close off the stream. I'm just going to let Kershaw out of my room. I'll be right back. Give me 1 sec. Okay, anyway, we're back. Yeah, so I think that, like, as the slate comes down tomorrow, one of the main things that I want to know about is what stacks look the highest owned and kind of, like, how I'm going to be approaching the chalk. Looks like, so far, a Chargers and a Jacksonville stack look the highest projected owned. I don't think that the Chargers stack's actually going to be that high owned. And I can bring up this here. I don't think that a Charger stack's actually going to be this high owned. I think that it's probably going to be a Jacksonville stack as the highest owned. I think that Buffalo stacks will likely be pretty high owned. And then I think that Cincinnati and the Chargers will come in third and fourth. So one of the big things that I'm probably going to be wanting to try to do is try to get more Kansas City than what the field is doing. Kansas City does not look high enough owned. And I think that you can just go Mahomes and Kelley and be fine with that. Especially considering how much higher people are on the Jacksonville side of things. I think that's something you have to really think about. Buffalo stacks, I think, are probably some of the best stacks on the slate, although I am a little bit worried about Josh Allen's ability to be a high-end quarterback this year. I just think that Brian Dable was good for him, and week 1 was a little bit worrisome. So, I don't know. I'm probably going to have a Buffalo stack, but, like, I'll probably prefer a Kansas City stack. I'm not sure where I'm going to really cut down yet. I know that I like Buffalo. I know that I like Kansas City. I know that I like Cincinnati. And I'll probably try to play a Baltimore stack just because sunken cost fallacy, and I've wasted too much fucking money on Lamar Jackson not to keep playing him. So I'll probably end up with a Jackson, Flowers, Andrews lineup. It projects pretty well, and I can't imagine there's going to be high ownership on it anyway. So I'm probably going to be thinking about those things. And then as far as ownership goes here, Joshua Kelley looks like bad chalk. And I can show that by running the contest sims, right? So we're going to run... Oh, I think I broke it. Give me 1 sec. All right, so we'll run this. Joshua Kelley overall looks like really bad chalk. He projects for the rushing work, a good chunk of it, but like whenever the Chargers don't have Austin Eckler, they just become a really pass-heavy team. So I'm really just not that concerned with taking Joshua Kelley. I think he's pretty bad chalk. The way that he gets there is by getting the rushing touchdowns, and like I showed at the beginning of this, the Chargers are just projected for basically the lowest rushing touchdown total on the slate. So I don't think that I have a lot of interest in taking Joshua Kelley. And that's really the only decision that I have to make, right? After I fade Joshua Kelley, who I expect to be more like 40% owned tomorrow, I'm just not going to have to make that many more decisions in terms of win equity or leverage. I'll make some decisions on like Calvin Ridley, but very likely I'll do Patrick Mahomes, Calvin Ridley, and Travis Kelce, and then fill it in with some value around it. I might have to make a decision on Stephon Diggs, but probably not. I probably would just eat that chalk and not fade Joshua Kelley. The rest of these guys project low enough that I'm not really worried about ownership after Joshua Kelley. So that's one thing that, like, I think people make a big mistake on is they focus way too much on trying to get off too much chalk, when really, if there's going to be one player that's projected and ends up like 35 to 40% owned, just fade that player. Or do direct leverage against it. Like, if you stack the Chargers tomorrow and don't use Joshua Kelley, you can do whatever the fuck you want with that lineup. You can stack as much chalk in that lineup as you want, and you'll be fine. So that's probably going to be my main thing. I'm going to have a Chargers stack to offset the Joshua Kelley ownership. I'm probably going to have a Kansas City stack on the other side of the Jacksonville ownership. And then for the third stack, I'm just going to, make a bad decision. Probably play Baltimore. That's probably going to be my main strategy tomorrow. You have found yourself loving a 3-max on FanDuel. Its field size 5.2 and started pivoting 2-3 chalk players depending on what your stack ownership is. Great. That's awesome. Yeah, that's pretty much how you should do it. But again, like I just said, you don't even have to pivot off 2 or 3 pieces. If there's one player that's going to be like 40% owned, just fade that player or have direct leverage against them, and then you can do pretty much whatever else you want. Do I have to go Boyd instead of Chase or Higgins since both of those guys are expensive? You don't have to. Like I showed in the optimizer, like you can land on Higgins and Chase lineups. Like here's one right here, and this one is pretty good. He's just Tutu Atwell and Adam Trautman, who are both well projected, and I expect to be relatively highly owned. It has Rashad White as leverage. That's a pretty good lineup. The only thing you might want to do is force in a correlation of like doing maybe Zay Flowers instead of Tutu Atwell and paying down a little bit more instead of Devontae Adams maybe, but overall, you can do it. It's not a big deal. Any concern on where to go on KC outside of Kelce? I'm probably just going to play Kelce. I just don't think that I need to do that much more than that. If I do go 2, I'm going to go Rashee Rice because I think he looked like actually legit good. So if I go 2 and I lock in Rice, who I think is probably the best wide receiver on that team, what do we get here? I mean, you get some pretty good lineups. Right? I mean, you end up with Dave Montgomery, Rashad White, Devontae Adams, Mike Williams, Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce, and Kincaid with the Titans defense. That's pretty sick. I'll buy that. This one with Tank Dell instead of Dalton Kincaid, I'll buy that. Oh, with the Jaguars defense, how hot is that? Like, there's some easy ways to go about that. I think that's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. All right, so this has been going on for about 38 minutes. I'm going to cut this video, and then I'm going to go do a little bit more work on things. But thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully I was able to answer some questions. Obviously, if you have more questions, come ask in the Discord. Always happy to answer them. You can find the Discord link right here in the member tools. If you go to Discord on the member tools, then you can go here. You can just click here. Free to join. Obviously, I'm going to say that you should subscribe to Paydirt as well, where you can find all the models that I just showed off. $40 a month gets you everything. $35 a month gets you NFL. You can also get some yearly options if you'd like for $200. You get access to everything on the site for the next 6 months. So thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate it. Ask any questions that you got in the Discord, and let's fucking crush out this week too. All right? Peace.